Good morning, 4E. Welcome to Wednesday's Read Aloud. The last point where we left off in Flying the Dragon was at the funeral for grandfather. We heard from Hiroshi's and Sky's perspective, and they were kind of saying their last goodbyes and closing that door and moving on to the next one. And we still haven't heard about the kite battle quite yet, so that's coming up. Okay, so chapter 36 from Hiroshi's perspective. A few hours later, Hiroshi and Sky rode their bikes back from the funeral parlor. They didn't speak the whole way home, but the silence between them wasn't angry for once. The wind was gentle, and Hiroshi pedaled slowly, careful to retrace the same path the family had taken earlier. When they arrived at the house, Hiroshi and Sky headed straight for the basement workshop. They still had to paint the kite and then test it. Sky picked up the plain white kite. What if it doesn't fly? It will fly. Hiroshi's voice sounded more confident than he felt. The kite had to fly. There wasn't time to make a new one before the competition. Hiroshi had promised grandfather that he and Sky would enter the contest. He would keep that promise. Sky set the kite down and walked over to the shelves of paint. What kind of design do you want to paint? Hiroshi looked at the dragon kite hanging on the wall. Its eyes did not look fierce anymore, just empty. I'm sorry you can't fly in the competition, Hiroshi thought. We'd win for sure with you at the end of our string. But he couldn't risk losing the dragon if it crashed in the battle. He went to the new kite and inspected it. The glue had dried, the bamboo ribs looked straight, and the washi paper fit the frame precisely. It looked good. The line was tied on tight, and the wooden dragon reel was ready. But would the kite fly? Sky set a jar of brushes on the table next to the kite. Can you paint another dragon? Hiroshi sighed. I'd like to, but it would never look like grandfather's. Sky nodded. I know what you mean. Hiroshi drifted back over to the shelves and scanned the paints. When he saw the jar of red powdered paint, he knew. I've got an idea. He grabbed a jar of black sumi ink and returned to the work table. Do you want to help? Sky shook her head and took a step back. I didn't get any of the family art genes. I can't even draw a straight line. How about a circle? Even worse. I'll just watch. Hiroshi dipped the brush in the ink and painted a circle on the white washi paper. The ink would prevent the paint from bleeding outside the circle. Next, he opened the lid of powdered paint, added water, and stirred it. He tapped the brush 3 times on the edge of the jar and wiped the excess paint from the bristles, just as grandfather used to do. He touched the brush to the washi paper and started filling in the circle, careful to keep the red paint inside the black line. Then he handed the brush to Sky. Here, you can fill in the rest of the circle if you want. Sky looked unsure, but took the brush. All I have to do is paint in the lines, right? Hiroshi nodded. But what if it drips outside the circle? It won't if you tap the extra paint off like this. He showed her how to cradle the brush with a cupped hand and lead it from pot to kite. Sky took a breath. Here goes. She took so long to finish that Hiroshi thought the paint might dry on the brush. But finally it was done. He stood back to inspect their work, a single red circle just off center. It was nothing like grandfather's works of art, but it would have to do. It looks good, Sky said. Hiroshi nodded. The symbol of a winking dragon, Sky finished. She smiled. No one else will guess. It's like a secret. Hiroshi smiled too. A secret dragon. A secret dragon that grandfather's spirit would surely recognize from the sky. At least Hiroshi hoped so. Once the paint dried, it was time for a test run. As Hiroshi carried the winking dragon to the park, a light breeze tugged at the kite. He tightened his grip. The kite would have to be patient. They reached the bottom of the hill, and Hiroshi paused, listening. "Not much wind today," he said. "I don't know if we can launch it." He eyed the lazy clouds overhead. "Well," Sky shrugged, "there's only one way to find out." When they reached the top of the hill, Hiroshi felt a whisper of a breeze. Closing his eyes, he concentrated on the feeble puffs of air and tried to read the direction of their path. "So what do you think?" Sky asked. "Is it worth a try?" Hiroshi nodded. "I think we can do it." He slipped the backpack off his shoulders and pulled out the reel. Sky grinned. "This reel knows dragons." Hiroshi nodded and fixed the line to the reel. "It will bring us luck, I just know it." "I hope so." Sky took the kite and paced backwards until they were several yards apart. She lifted the kite by the bridle. I didn't know it was called that. Let's see. As soon as Hiroshi felt a small gust of wind, he nodded. Sky released the kite, he ran with the line, and the winking dragon began its crooked climb. "Come on, go up, fly!" But he could see the breeze wasn't strong enough. The wind sighed as the kite drifted back down. Sky ran to catch it before it hit the ground. She shook her head as she walked it over. "How many chances to launch will we get in the battle?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Hiroshi shrugged. "Sometimes it takes a few tries." Hiroshi studied the clouds that crept across the sky, sleepy and content. "There is some wind up there, but not much. Let's try again." They set up the line and the kite once again. Hiroshi turned his back to the breeze. He unrolled some extra line, then held on with both hands. "Now!" She let go of the kite and Hiroshi pulled up on the line. The kite climbed higher and higher as Hiroshi shuffled backwards, faster and faster. The wind took hold of the winking dragon and Hiroshi let out more line, surrendering the kite to the sky. It worked! Sky ran up, and Hiroshi grinned, handing her the reel. He grasped the line and practiced a few dives and twists with the kite before allowing it to drift even higher into the sky. Sky clapped and let out a whoop. Hiroshi laughed. They had done it! They'd made a kite that could fly. But could it fight? So that's the end of that chapter. We'll stop there, and then I'll pick up in the next video for part 2.